In this video, I'm going to show you how to eat less fast food. If you want to control what you eat, control your body, and control your life, then hit the subscribe button so you never miss a video. I didn't really get into fast food until I became a professional. I graduated from PT school, became a physical therapist, started working. Before then, I really didn't eat it that much. When I was a binge eater in my 20s, I mainly consumed stuff that I found at the grocery store because there was so much there. There was, ice cream and cookies and frozen foods and whatever, candy. I didn't need to go to fast food restaurants. I really didn't want to waste my money there. But then when I moved to Texas in 2015, I did some training in Oklahoma City, and that was the first time in my life that I went to a Sonic. Sonic is that drive-through. You order outside, you press the button, and then a car hop comes and delivers your food. It's kind of like the old school diner. But I remember the first time I had it, and I was instantly hooked. I loved the spicy chicken or whatever. It comes in that little envelope or that little sleeve, and it's like 5 or 6 bites of chicken. That was really good. And then the Sonic Blast, which is the milkshake that they have, it's just very thick and luscious, and they have the whipped cream and the cherry on the top. Who can resist that? Well, apparently I couldn't. And so one time led to another time to another time, and it was like my new favorite binge food. I had all of this new money that I didn't have before. I was making way more than I ever had in my life. And what did I do with that money? I used it to abuse myself, which is kind of unfortunate, but that's what I was doing. And it just shows what our minds can do sometimes when we're not really aware and we're not in control. I remember the first time I had Jack in the Box, which is what I'm holding here right now. I was close to Dallas, Texas. I had never been in a Jack in the Box because Jack in the Box doesn't exist on the East Coast, which is kind of weird if you think about it. Why aren't they on the East Coast? Do people not want greasy hamburgers and fries out there? I don't know. But that was the first time I had it, and I loved the curly fries that they had. Like Arby's, they have those hot curly fries. Well, Jack in the Box does the same thing, and I got hooked on those too. But their milkshakes are good too. I remember having a few of those, and their chicken sandwiches and their burgers. I was in new territory. I had never had this stuff before. And I can see why fast food is so addictive. I'm going to tell you why. In my experience, California and Texas are the worst offenders of fast food. That's where fast food started. The first McDonald's was built in San Bernardino, California, out there in the Inland Empire, the desert, Dick and Mac. And then Ray Kroc found it, and then he exploded the business, and now McDonald's is a, I don't know, $50 billion industry. I mean, just a massive corporation, most recognized brand in the world, thousands and thousands of franchises. But the reason why he was able to do that is because he was selling a product that had a huge appetite. People wanted fast food. People wanted tasty food. They didn't want to cook from scratch anymore. That's a big point. Is the biggest advantage of fast food is convenience. It is kind of difficult sometimes to cook something from scratch, even though it's healthier and more economical. If you go to a fast food restaurant, you can get something that you know is going to taste good and it's going to satisfy you in just a matter of minutes. Every time we choose convenience, we sacrifice nutrition and quality and cost with all of that. It's good and it's bad, but we live in a fast-paced society. We have a lot of distractions. We have a lot of activities. Life isn't the way it was 100 years ago, and people don't necessarily want to cook every meal from scratch. It's easy to demonize fast food in some ways, but think about what women were doing 100 years ago. They were just cooking all day. They would cook a meal for the men, and then the men would go out into the fields, or they would go into the factory, and then women would have to cook another meal, then another meal. I mean, their whole life was nothing but preparing for the next meal and keeping the house clean. I don't think we want to go back to that. So fast food definitely served a purpose. It still serves a purpose today. It's convenient and it's fast and it's predictable. You can go from West Coast to East Coast, North to South, and a burger at one Jack in the Box or one Burger King is going to be the same anywhere else. And I think that's what people like about it, is that you know what you're getting with fast food. It's a recognized brand, and that's the power of brand. Branding is just trust. You know what you're going to get, and you don't have to guess. I remember I was in San Antonio, and I remember seeing just all of these signs for fast food and restaurants. And it's no wonder San Antonio is one of the fattest cities in the country. I think McAllen, way down there on the border of Mexico, I think that's number one. Then Evansville, Indiana is number two. And then San Antonio is right up there. When you're in places like San Antonio, it's not hard to figure out why, because there's just fast food and buffets and restaurants everywhere competing for your stomach. Texas also has Whataburger. I think Whataburger only exists in Texas. It might be in Oklahoma a little bit. I don't see it anywhere else. But that's kind of like the In and Out of Texas. In and Out is that big chain in California and the West Coast. It has this cult following. I don't know why. I don't know what's so great about it. The milkshakes aren't that great. The fries are okay. I guess the burgers are good, but I don't eat cheeseburgers, so I don't know what the big deal is. But it's not a franchise. It's actually owned by the Snyder family. Just one family owns the whole thing. So Lisa Snyder, she's doing pretty well. But California and Texas have every fast food restaurant you could possibly think of. I guess Arizona does too. Fast food is really big phenomenon on the West Coast and the Midwest. It's not as big on the East Coast, I find. Yeah, there's your McDonald's and your Burger Kings, but when I live in places like Texas and California, I just see them everywhere. It's just like you can't get away from it. I remember going past a Jack in the Box in LA, and there was a sign on the window that said EBT accepted, meaning you can bring food stamps into a Jack in the Box and get a meal. So I don't know about that. Is that good policy? Let me know in the comments below. One thing I noticed about fast food is it's not as cheap as you think. I think a lot of people think that poor people go to fast food restaurants because it's cheap. I don't think so at all. This burger, this is just a single patty, no cheese, no mayo, because I don't eat cheese and mayo. I don't know why that matters, because I don't plan to eat this. It's just a prop for the video. But if you get an extra value meal at, say, Chick-fil-A, you get the number 2, spicy chicken sandwich with the waffle fries and the Coke. It's $9. It's not cheap. Maybe it's cheaper in places like Georgia, where Chick-fil-A started, by the Cathy family, or I don't know. But when I go to a fast food restaurant and I get just your typical meal, it's $8 to $9. That's not cheap. If you ate fast food 3 times a day, that's $25 just to feed yourself. By comparison, I spend $400 a month feeding myself, and I eat quite a lot, but I also eat stuff that's relatively not inexpensive. I wouldn't say cheap, but inexpensive. Beans, rice, bread, those aren't cheap because I eat a lot more carbs, so carbs are cheaper. Cliff bars, whatever. It doesn't take a lot to feed yourself. And so for somebody like me, $400, that maybe that's too much, but if you were eating out every day, that adds up. So imagine if you got fast food once a day, $9 each time. That's $270 you're spending on fast food. So fast food is not as cheap as they say. Drive-through, I think, is the laziest thing you could possibly do. It's not only are you consuming tons of fat and starch in one meal, but you can't even get off your butt and get into the restaurant. In Texas, they have drive-through Panda Expresses, which is crazy. I mean, Panda Express has a drive-through. I've only seen that in Texas, so I'm not surprised. But even here, they have drive-through Krispy Kremes, and so there's this huge line going around the building just to get some donuts. It's like, if you're gonna eat donuts, you might as well get out of the car, walk a few steps, burn off like 1/100th of that donut. But apparently that's too much. So I don't like to go into drive-through. You end up waiting longer. I remember I was at a Starbucks, and the line around the Starbucks was like that. And I walked in, and there was no line. I'm thinking, what are you guys doing in the drive-through? There's 10 cars in the drive-through, nobody standing in line. And I walked up, got my stuff, and I left. And the car that was number 10 when I entered was now number 7 when I left. I mean, come on, don't be that lazy. If you're going to get some fast food, at least walk a little bit. Speaking of lines, fast food restaurants have made it easier than ever to get their stuff. Most fast food restaurants have apps, so you can pre-order, which makes total sense. Why would you go there, order, and stand in line and waste your time? Why don't you just order ahead of time? It's like at Starbucks when the line is really long, and I see people walking up to the counter and taking their stuff because they ordered ahead of time. We have apps. We have ways to save time. Don't waste your time standing in the line. It's stupid. But I went to a McDonald's in Central Valley, California, and they had a self-serving kiosk, and this is a year ago. And so this is kind of a preview of the future, and I could press the buttons and I entered my card and they delivered it in 2 minutes. Of course, you need somebody to prepare it and put it on the counter and yell the number of your order, but I think we're going to see fewer workers in these restaurants. My point is, I think we're going to see a lot more automation and a lot more robots in the future. And it's going to make it easier than ever to get your order. That's good and that's bad. It makes it more efficient, but it also makes it easier to get food. So one of the trends we've seen over the last 100 years is that it takes less energy to get more and more food. Think about it. If you have an app like DoorDash or Grubhub, you can just press a button and somebody comes to your home and delivers you all of this food. So how much energy did that take? Basically nothing. You hit a button on your phone and now somebody's bringing you this meal that was prepared by somebody else. It might be a little expensive, but it takes no effort on your part. Or if you go in drive-through, you don't even have to get out of the car. This is a very American video if you can't tell. So energy obtained, energy expended, there's a huge mismatch. Back in the day, you had to expend a lot of energy to get food, and so that's why there was no obesity. Nobody was fat. Now we live in an environment where it takes literally no effort to get thousands and thousands of calories of salt, sugar, and fat. Doesn't take a lot of work. In-N-Out and Chick-fil-A, tale of two stories. In-N-Out started in California by the Snyder family. It's still under the Snyder family. Chick-fil-A started by the Cathy family. I think it's still owned by the Cathy family. Both of them are really Christian families. If you look on the packaging of In-N-Out, they'll have Bible verses on the bottom. I don't think most people notice that. Chick-fil-A, I don't think they do that, but the Cathy family is very outspoken about their religious beliefs. They've created some controversy in the past over public statements that they've made, but whatever, the food's good. It's not healthy just because it's religious, and just because the owners believe what you believe about God and the afterlife doesn't necessarily make it healthy. It's still kind of greasy fast food. Even though it's chicken, they fry a lot of their stuff, and there's still a lot of oil, and their milkshakes are still filled with a ton of fat and sugar. And fries, well, you know how they make fries. They dunk in an oil, which is just a lot of fat. So don't fall for the halo effect just because you like the religious views of the company. It doesn't necessarily make the product any healthier. Just because McDonald's and Burger King are secular doesn't mean that a Whopper is worse than a double cheeseburger at In-N-Out. My next point is fast food is not as fast as you think. I walked into the Jack in the Box. There was only 2 people there. I had to wait 5 minutes, and then I placed my order, and then I waited another 6 or 7 minutes. So I waited almost 15 minutes from the time I walked in to the time I walked out. That's not fast. I can go into a sit-down restaurant and get my food for 20 or 30 minutes. Depends on the time of the day. But I don't think that's that fast. I think what's fast is when you order ahead of time and it's ready by the time you get there. So there are ways to speed up your order. But fast food, it's not really cheap and it's not really fast. The only thing that it is convenient and predictable. And I think that's why people go back. And it tastes good. That's important too. My next point is fast food isn't the problem. You are. Here's my point. I think we like to point at fast food companies and blame them for the obesity epidemic. It's just cool to do that. I don't think you can necessarily blame the fast food companies. They're just delivering what we want. We want convenient, tasty food. And that's what they deliver. That's what people want. But what about all of the stuff in the grocery store? So you walk into a grocery store, there's cookies, crackers, chips, there's processed carbs everywhere, there's ice cream, they have prepared foods, they have bread, they have donuts, they have everything. When I was binger, that's where I got all my stuff. I went to the grocery store. I wasn't going to fast food restaurants. You don't have to step into a fast food restaurant to get fat. I think there's an element of class warfare against fast food, because who goes to fast food? It's middle class and low income people, mainly. I'm not saying that rich people and wealthy people never eat at fast food. I think Anthony Bourdain's favorite restaurant was Popeyes, of all the places, just because he knew what he was going to get, and it reminded him that he was in America again. Popeyes, very American. But it's kind of cool to make fun of fast food, but just keep in mind that when you make fun of fast food, you're making fun of poor people, because it's poor people who like to go to fast food restaurants. Just keep in mind, when you make fun of fast food companies, you're making fun of poor people too, because fast food companies benefit the poor disproportionately. If you have money, you probably have time to learn how to cook. You have time to learn about nutrition. You can buy blenders and tools. You can take classes. Learning about good quality food is kind of a luxury. If you're poor, you don't have very many options. If you want to eat healthy, you want to eat home-cooked meals, you can cook something for cheap, but you still have fewer options. And you're probably not thinking about nutrition when you're poor. You're probably just thinking about how am I going to feed myself and pay my bills and make it to the next day. We need to keep that in mind when we make fun of fast food restaurants. If you don't want to eat fast food, fine. I'm glad you have other options in life, but not everybody can say the same. If you get cravings for fast food, that's not entirely your fault. For a long time, I didn't have any cravings for fast food. I never wanted to eat fast food. And then once I tried it, I was like, whoa, this is amazing. I have to have it again. And so my brain recorded that. My brain remembered how good it tasted. And so it released dopamine in my brain. Now, dopamine makes you motivated. It motivates you to take action. So when I tried that Sonic Blast with Snickers, my brain remembered how good it tasted, and so it motivated me to pursue it again and again and again because it likes sugar and fat. But it was my responsibility to stop it, and eventually I did. But I spent so much of my life debating, should I eat fast food today or should I not? Should I binge today or should I not? And I wasted years and years. Now, fortunately, I recovered and I show people how to do that, but it didn't need to take that long. And I can't blame the fast food companies. What are we supposed to do? Blame companies for making tasty food? I mean, that's kind of stupid. You might as well blame your grandma for making you chocolate chip cookies. It's just seems kind of silly to me. Food manufacturers aren't the problem, you are. Maybe it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility to stop. Quality is definitely an issue with this. This was about $3.50, which is not that cheap. When you choose convenience and taste, you're sacrificing nutrition and quality. If you ever read the book Fast Food Nation by Eric Schlosser, I don't think I'm pronouncing that right. They turned it into a movie, which was okay. It was kind of stupid. But the book was really good and talks about meat processing facilities and where they get their meat. Remember, all that meat came from somewhere. This was once a cow, and there were a lot of steps involved. Now, if you want to learn about it, you can read that book. That book was written in the late 90s, so I doubt much has changed. But if you really want quality, fast food's probably not your best choice. Or if you care about the environment or animal rights, you probably don't want to eat fast food too much. A good quality meat is usually $10 to $15 a pound. I'm guaranteeing you this is not $10 a pound. Having said that, fast food can actually be somewhat nutritious. The macronutrient profile of this isn't that bad. You have starch in the bun, so that's carbs. You have a little bit of vegetables, raw onion, tomato, lettuce. Lettuce is not really anything. And then the beef patty has fat and protein. And then if you want to talk about micronutrients, there's zinc, probably some B12 in the beef patty. This isn't that bad. This is maybe 400 calories without the cheese and the mayo. Now, if you add that, you're adding more. But this would be somewhat satisfying. This wouldn't be the worst meal from a nutrition standpoint. I know we like to say how bad fast food is and how obesogenic it is. The fries, yeah, there's very little in the fries that you need. But even then, there's some carbs, right? The soda is probably the least nutritious part. It's just a bunch of added sugar that you don't need. But even the milkshake, okay, got some carbs, got some fat, got some energy to burn. Is this the most nutritious meal you can make? Probably not. But it's not the worst either. If I were on an island and I had nothing to eat, this wouldn't be a bad choice. I'll say this, I'd rather have this than a kale smoothie. Fast food also has another advantage. It's another place where parents with small children can go. The parents can eat, and then the kids can go play on the playground or play in the balls or go down the slide or something. You can't do that anywhere else. It's hard to eat out when you have kids because the kids can't sit still. They don't want to wait. They can't make adult conversation. Obviously, they just want to eat something. And so if you can get your food faster and keep the kids distracted, why not? So I kind of empathize with parents who have small kids. I remember eating fast food a lot growing up because my parents, I have two siblings, so it was the three of us. My parents worked jobs and they had busy lives and they didn't always want to cook at home. And I get it. I'm not a parent myself, but I can kind of relate. When you've had a long day, do you really want to spend an hour cooking something for your kids? So fast food definitely serves a purpose. Maybe my parents could have learned more about nutrition, but whatever. That was like 25 years ago. They didn't have HelloFresh and Purple Carrot and Blue Apron and all these other services that can make prepared meals for you. That gets expensive, by the way. But when your kids are hungry and you've had a long day, fast food doesn't seem like a bad option at that point. And you know what? Despite all that fast food, despite all that processed food I ate, here I am, and I've never been healthier. Fast food is also kind of a rite of passage for a lot of people in lower income countries. We like to demonize it here. We're kind of elitist about it. Oh, fast food, who eats fast food? But when you go to a country like India or Mexico, they think fast food is the greatest thing ever. They think like it makes them feel middle class. It makes them feel like they've reached a certain stratum of society. The country where it's the most popular is Kuwait. I was watching a video about fast food in Kuwait, and those people love it. They have it KFC and Pizza Hut and Taco Bell, McDonald's, Burger King. They love it. Now, obesity rates are rising, but I don't think that's entirely due to fast food. I think it's just due to more sedentary activities, increased affluence, greater access to prepared meals, and that's what happens. People expend less, they eat out more. Well, when you eat out more, you don't know exactly what's in it. Usually more oil and more fat to make it tastier. I think it's easy to point at fast food restaurants and say, "Oh, you're making this country fatter." It's not. That's such a simple argument to make. They're just delivering what people want. People want to eat out more. They don't want to wait long, and they want something tasty. There you go. That's why fast food companies make billions of dollars every year. My point is, quit blaming fast food companies. Fast food also democratized the experience of eating out. For a long time, until fast food was invented, the only people who could eat out were rich people, because you go to the restaurant and somebody serves you. You didn't have a lot of restaurants like Outback and Applebee's and all of these chain restaurants, Cheesecake Factory. But what McDonald's and the fast food companies did is they made it affordable for low-income people to eat out, and they thought it was the greatest thing. Oh my gosh, we're gonna go eat out. That was cool. That's how people in lower-income countries feel. They feel like, wow, we can eat out. We've never eaten out before. Maybe it's not the most nutritious thing. Maybe it's not the healthiest thing. That's probably not what they're thinking about. They have families. They want to feed their families, and they want to feed their families without spending an hour preparing a meal. My point is, quit shaming people who eat it. There are pros and cons to fast food. The cons, quality, nutrition. The pros, it's convenient, it's tasty, it's predictable, and you can feed your family like that. Okay, so it definitely serves a purpose. Personally, I don't eat a lot of fast food. I bought this as a prop. Maybe I'll eat it because I hate wasting food. But I used to eat milkshakes like daily. Now, how much fat and sugar was that? Yeah, I can't even imagine. Now it's something that I get when I have a really strong craving, and I determine that I actually want it. I don't want it that much anymore. I'm just not motivated to do it anymore. And that should tell you something. Even if you have cravings for fast food now, it doesn't mean you will always have cravings. Cravings come and go. Cravings aren't destiny. They can't make you do anything. If you haven't already, watch my previous video on cravings. It's definitely worth watching. If you're overeating, binge eating, or you have fast food cravings, head to my website, saneaters.com, and you can find my free training there. If you want to speak with me personally, there is a link in the description box below. Don't forget to check out some of my other videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.